Hello, this is Mr. McMurray, and we're here for Scientific Method Notes Part 2. Okay. And we talked a little bit about scientific method, problem, curiosity, research, finding out information, and hypothesis, testing that with an experiment, and we have variables, and an experimental group, and a control group. Alright, I'm not sure, I think that's about where we left off, but we have an experimental group. That's where you've changed something. Like say you have two tomato plants, one of them has fertilizer, one does not. The experimental group would be the one with fertilizer. Control group would be the one that does not. And that way, if you get more tomatoes on the one with fertilizer, you can compare it to the one without and see that yes, it did make a difference, or no, it didn't really seem to make much difference. All right. Now, once that happens, you're going to observe and record the data. Sometimes we just say observe, but we're going to write it down usually somehow. We may take pictures. For example, we had plants. We could take pictures of the two plants, put them side by side, compare them. We could use graphs that show how much they grew per day, how many leaves they had, how many tomatoes they produced, the weight of the tomatoes, whatever. Videos, possibly, not in this particular case, but maybe something that's a test drive of a certain kind of car or something. We might do something like that. Written reports, we've got to write it out, and scientists are just as bad about students. They don't like writing things down, but it's very important to write things down, because you hate to find out, say, a cure for cancer, but then you didn't really write down exactly what you did, and so you can't do it again, and that's not good. All right, I may draw some kind of chart or table, graphs, tables with information, readings, so forth. Okay, all those are things we might do to observe or record the data. Keep a record of that. All right. Now, after that, then we're ready to look at our results. We're ready to come to a conclusion. We either accept and say, yes, our hypothesis was correct. Fertilizer does increase the amount of tomatoes that the tomato plant puts on. Or we reject it and say, no, we grew them and the results are about the same. The one with fertilizer, bat guano, whatever, had about the same number of tomatoes as the one not. Or maybe it made more tomatoes, but they're smaller, or vice versa, fewer tomatoes, but they're bigger. Or it may just got really tall and green and leafy, but didn't really actually put more tomatoes, which is kind of the whole point of a tomato plant, at least if you have one in your garden, is to get more tomatoes. All right, so you would come to your conclusion. Your conclusion is based on one experiment, so obviously it could be changed. If someone else does an experiment and they can't get the same results, then that's going to affect whether or not we decide your conclusion is true or not. But if lots of people all over the world or different places do the same thing and they always get the same result, then we are willing to come with a theory. A theory is an explanation that's been tested many times. So there have been lots of experiments that have been done and reinforce this theory. Okay? Do we know 100% that theory is correct? Not always, especially when we're talking about things that happened in the past or predicting, like models that predict global warming or the weather or whatever is going to happen in the future. It may not be 100% guaranteed, but it is based on something, a lot of experimentation and so forth, and so it's our best explanation for it. And it has been tested. There's some proof behind it. We've done some things to try it out and see what would really work best. So it's not just an opinion. A lot of people say, oh, I have a theory about this. Well, what they really mean is they have an opinion about that, or maybe a hypothesis, but they've never tested it. They don't know any proof behind it, so it's not really. Now, there are a few things that are so true that seem to explain how the natural world around us works that we call them a law. And this is what I just say, a theory that's never been shown to be incorrect. So we think it's just the way the world works. Now, that may not explain why. We may have gone into theory to try to explain why it works that way, but we have been able to explain this is how things work. And so, for example, the law of gravity. The law of gravity works even in outer space. The law of gravity works because, according to Newton's theory and some other people's that have added to it since then, the farther you are from the center of the Earth, there should be less gravity. And technically, you never get to where there's no gravity or zero gravity. You just get to where there's less and less. And so Newton's basic law explains how that works. And so far, we haven't found any situations that cause it not to work. Now, theoretically, could we in the future? Possibly, but we're pretty sure that it's not going to change. And that's why we leave it like that. Now, to remember the order of these, problem, research, hypothesis, experiment, observe and record data, come to a conclusion, maybe a theory, and maybe even eventually a law, we have this. Purple raccoons, hippos, and elephants often climb twisted ladders. Now, that may be harder to remember than just the regular thing. So if you can come up with a better one, by all means let me know and we will do that. But if not, there's a little acronym-y thing to help you remember those. All right. Now the next thing we'll talk about, Roman numeral 3, is pure science versus applied science. Pure is when we just want to find out facts. We want to know something, I just want to know that, okay? It may not be any particular use for it. I may see a particular spider and I want to know how it lives. So I put it in a jar and I try to feed it different things and I do stuff. I just want to find it out. There's really no purpose in me trying to figure out what that spider eats, okay? I just want to know. Applied science is putting the facts to practical use. For example, there are some insects like ladybugs that eat aphids and other plants, bugs that are harmful to plants. And so people did experiments to see if they would really put them in the garden, would that help? And they found that yes, it does. And so now people are figuring out, well, what are ways of growing ladybugs so that we can send ladybugs to people for them to put in their garden? Of course, the downside is nothing to stop the ladybug from flying away. And if they eat all the aphids and all the other bad bugs, well, then they're going to go somewhere else and then the bugs might come back. But that's the chance we take, okay? But applied science, you're doing something useful. In the United States, that very often comes down to something we can make money at. But at any rate, doing something useful with it, okay? For example, Newton discovered how light went through lenses, and he did a lot of studies and the idea of prisms and so forth. And we have used that by making glasses, microscopes, and a whole bunch of other different things that we've used all of them for telescopes, microscopes, whatever. All these things, that was a practical use for that. And so that would be applied science. Whereas him finding how light went through the lenses was more pure science, or just discovering facts, because he wanted to know how it worked. All right. The last section we'll talk about is accuracy versus precision. Okay. Precision is how consistent your results are between repeated trials. In other words, if I do the experiment several times, can I get consistent results each time, about the same answer each time? So let's say I grow the tomatoes with fertilizer and without. And one time there's more in the ones with fertilizer, the next time there's more in the ones without. Next time it's the ones with, the next time the one without. If I can't get the same results each time, something's going on there besides just the fertilizer. Maybe there's something else about how much sunlight they get, or too much water, or not enough water. They're not getting the same amount of water. Something else may be affecting my results. Maybe they have a little different kind of soil or something. So that would not be very precise. Precise means we do it each time, we get about the same results. If they are consistent or precise, then we assume that we're probably right because we say the experiment has repeatability. Now, repeatability is kind of my word for it because it means we can repeat the experiment and get the same results. Can the experiment be done over and over with the same result each time? The scientific word for that is replicated. You think about DNA replicates or make a copy of itself. Well, in this case, can we do the experiment or copy it over and over and still get the same results each time? If we can, that means we probably are correct. The other thing is accuracy is how close you are to the correct or the accepted value. Okay. Say, for example, if I'm going to do an experiment to see how many mice live in the field out here, okay, or I could be deer in a state park or something like that. I would go. There's different ways of testing that. If I had mice, I could take traps, catch them alive traps, and catch them and count them and let them go, and then keep doing that. And after a while, I would get an idea about how many mice are there. Or I could do like with the deer. I could go out at night with a headlight or spotlight and drive a certain distance, shine the spotlight off to the side, and count the deer. I see their eyes in the reflection, and then estimating how much of the park I've covered compared to how big the whole park is, and how many deer I saw compared to how many were probably in the rest of the park. I could come up with an answer. But the problem is, I really don't know if it's accurate or not. I don't know if that's the correct answer because I don't know how many mice are in the pasture, or I don't know how many deer are in the park. That's the whole point, is to come up with the answer. So I don't know what the correct or accepted value is for that. So I would hope that if I can do it several times, I do different surveys on different nights, or different trapping in different places in the pasture, that if I get the same results each time, hopefully that's because they're also accurate, even though they may not be. But that's what I'm hoping, that if I keep getting the same answer, then hopefully that's because they are accurate. Now, if we liken this to target shooting, this is a target. We've got a bullseye in each one of these. Okay, this one, do we have very good precision? Are the shots close to each other? Yes, they're all real tight pattern. In fact, this has the best precision probably of any of these. That one's pretty good, but this one's actually, I think, maybe a little bit closer. So it has great precision. But is it accurate? No, it's off to the side, so it's not very good. It'd be like if our gun sight was off. And so, yeah, we can hit the same spot every time, but it's not the right spot. In science, that might be like a scale is malfunctioning. It's always 5 grams off. Well, no matter how hard you work with that, you may get the same answer every time. You think, oh, I'm getting consistent answers, but they're always off by 5 grams, and that's going to mess up your results. So we would say that this one is very precise, but not accurate. All right, this one down here, is it very precise? No, it's probably the worst for precise. The answers are all over the place. However, notice that if we average these, we'd probably end up with something over here. So our average wouldn't be too bad. It'd be fairly close. Might even be a little closer to the right answer than this one. But we're kind of all over the place. So we don't really know if this is the right answer. Is that the right answer? Since, like I said, we don't know the right answer or the target, we might pick one of these others and be way off. So this one is poor precision and really not very good accuracy either. But if you average them, fairly accurate, but yeah, that's not very good. It's like if you were shooting a gun like this, I don't know if you're going to hit somebody, so it's not very good. All right. This one is not as precise as this one, but it is more precise, so it's pretty precise, and if you average these out, they would be dead center, so it is very accurate. So it's good precision, and it has good accuracy. We would be happy with that most of the time. We're close to the right answer, and where answers are fairly close to each other and consistent. But obviously the best one here, we have precision, and all of them are within the bullseye, so they're all in the target. So this is very precise and very accurate. Okay, and of course, naturally, we would prefer to have this one in science, but we don't always know what the right answer is. So this one and this one might look very similar. We think, oh, we're getting the same answers every time, we're good. And whereas this one's actually accurate and this one's not. This is one of the reasons we do trials over and over again and see if they can be replicated to make sure that, yes, in fact, this is a good answer and not just a very precise but inaccurate answer. All right, and that's basically it. We will have a quiz tomorrow. Enjoy.